The reason why we like the name is it kind of represents a few different things. Build a breakout application. That's always the spirit. You want to see breakout startups coming into the ecosystem. And so this is like a great opportunity to do your first basically engineering sprint. Break out of your mundane profession and join like the crypto revolution type thing. A lot of people that I've worked with in crypto are coming from like traditional tech, working at FANG companies, Google, and like there's only so much you can do in terms of like interesting work at those places. And so if you want to work on something more meaningful than editing the like button, this hackathon's a good way to dip your toes into that world. So there's like traditional tech, there's obviously like TradFi, right? Like people stuck in their cubicles, academia, right? If you're like a student, you want to like graduate and get to a more interesting professional world, breaking out of the cubicle in a sense and like joining our people in spreading crypto around the world.
Hey everyone, the next hackathon outbreak, it's going to be a kickoff.
Breakout, not outbreak. It sounds like a virus. It's too soon.
That's too soon.
Breakout is what we're going with this time.
Can I use any like teasers about what breakout means?
Sure. Yeah, the reason why we like the name is it represents a few different things. So it's build a breakout application. That's always the spirit of these competitions is you want to see breakout startups coming into the ecosystem. And so this is like a great opportunity to do your first basically engineering sprint to launch it. It's also break out of your mundane profession and join like the crypto revolution type thing where a lot of people that I've worked with in crypto are coming from like traditional tech. So that's working at FANG companies. Well, and there's only so much you can do in terms of interesting work at those places. And if you want to work on something more meaningful than like editing the like button, this hackathon's a good way to dip your toes into that world. So there's like traditional tech, there's obviously like TradFi, right? Like people stuck in their cubicles playing this very zero-sum game and or like academia, right? If you're like a student, you want to like graduate and get to a more interesting professional world. So it's also speaking to just like breaking out of the cubicle in a sense and like joining our people in spreading crypto around the world.
No, it's quite a nice sort, I think, a time as well with everything. It's getting a lot noisier in the US with crypto. Have you been experiencing much of that? What differences have you started to see?
Oh, you just with the kind of like new regime change in the United States, I think obviously all of the pending SEC cases against Coinbase and exchanges and other folks have been dropped pretty much. And so there was the strategic Bitcoin reserve was announced, and there's a lot of optimism on things changing for the better for our industry in the United States. And I think the tangible way that's changing is that a lot of the folks who were in the United States who had moved abroad because they were worried about some of the rules and the way that the old administration was treating them have coming to move back. And I think that's encouraging to see.
Because the Colosseum traditionally has a lot of like US startups that are coming through it.
I think a little over a third of the projects we've admitted into the accelerator and invested in are coming from the United States originally.
And then it is really cool to see like globally it all come together. With the last one, I was like over 1,600 projects being able to go into it. It's just like suddenly rose each time for all the way. And I think it's exciting to just see that excitement further go out, more people wanting to build, be able to get creativity and the story of like where Colosseum then came from, because it's very focused on early stage founders. So if you feel like you want to be able to build a project, you want to go forward, well, you can just go on the Colosseum right now. You can be able to create a profile. Yeah, there's the eternal and new thing that's being able to be released there. So you can start your own like mini hackathon in between the main ones, which are like still other new ways to get into the accelerator. And then start your journey, start building out, try and get traction, move forward. And these hackathons, like a Colosseum even evolved from the early Solana hackathons that began. And then your story coming from into the Solana ecosystem, working with them foundation to launch out these then hackathons, then being able to bring together the team to found Colosseum. It's been on like a really cool adventure. Like for anyone who hasn't been able to be there and watch it all the way through, why don't you also like just give a little bit of like a story on how it began, and then we can dive into all of the new things coming up for the Breakout Hackathon.
Yeah, happy to give the story. So yeah, I joined the Solana ecosystem when I was hired by Solana Labs in 2020, and I was coming from the Ethereum ecosystem. And yeah, it was obviously very nascent. I joined right when it went to mainnet beta. And so there really weren't any startups, let alone like that many developers like building projects on the infrastructure. It was really hard at the time. That's where the whole like chewing glass sort of narrative took place. And yeah, we were just trying to figure out how to bring more developers, but also specifically startup founders into the ecosystem. And so we started running these hackathons, and that's really what helped a lot of the initial growth and get a lot of the initial primitives in like DeFi and some of these other verticals. And so, yeah, from there, I mean, I just focused more and more on running these hackathons for Solana Labs and the Solana Foundation. And then, yeah, we spun out Colosseum in early 2024. And we raised a venture fund and kind of built on this accelerator platform, as well as a platform specifically to run these hackathons in the way that we run them, is a little bit different than traditional hackathons in a lot of senses. Yeah, that's what we do. We run these hackathons. That's how we grow the Solana ecosystem, but it's also how we evaluate potential founder talent for our accelerator and our venture fund. And yeah, we've run two cohorts of teams after 2 hackathons, and we have a third one coming up called Solana Breakout.
There we go. We're breaking out of the mundane life. We're going into this crazy world.
Build your next breakout startup on Solana. And yeah, that's what we're focused on right now. And yeah, maybe we can talk about it a little bit later, but we launched something called Eternal, which is our Perpetual hackathon that's ongoing. And that's another opportunity for founders to get in front of us and to pitch us and basically potentially get accepted into the program as well.
Yeah, because the Eternals is live right now. So when we're recording this.
Yeah, so the idea basically was that we had all of these folks come to us throughout the year, because we only run 2 hackathons a year and they last about a month and a half each. So there's a lot of obviously dead time where we're not running hackathons. That's when we're running these accelerator programs and doing other things, mostly preparing for the next hackathon. And we had a lot of founders come to us and, hey, when's the next hackathon? And we're like, oh, it's a couple months from now. So just hold tight. And they're like, no, I'm not going to wait around for that. I'm going to launch my startup now. And I think that's awesome. That's probably what you should do if you're a startup founder. The way that sort of we evaluate pre-seed kind of startups and founders is putting them through this sort of 5-week engineering/product sprint. And that is the hackathon. And so we're like, how do we open up this opportunity and support founders throughout the year, namely when we're not running our hackathons? So yeah, to just further support growth in the ecosystem and help fund startup founders. And so we're like, we still want people to go through this sort of engineering sprint, and because it's really core to how we evaluate teams. And so we basically broke that out into something called Eternal, which is this on-demand system where you can sign up for a Colosseum account, click initiate challenge, and then it starts this basically 28-day timer where you need to complete your sprint and then give us like weekly updates basically on like your progress and what you're prioritizing. And so yeah, we have about 200 teams that are working through their sprints right now. I think the first batch will actually be submitting, because we launched this about a month ago, we'll be submitting fairly soon this week. So we'll see kind of the first group. So yeah, that's it at a high level.
Yeah, no, I think I love the element of the weekly reviews. Like you have to create like a little video, you have to kick it going. I think a lot of online hackathons, sometimes it feels like there's not much interaction there, kind of like you're building in a silo. But then when you're being able to be a part of this program where you're creating like little videos, showing them the demonstration, it's nice if they come together and they're able to then see one another. I think it's where like the super teams are really powerful as well, is that we've got our co-working Fridays, and each week the people who are building present their like little 1-minute demo update. Cool, this is where I'm at, this is how far I've been able to go. And then the community is able to help motivate and help be able to like push them forward. And you've got a platform now of Colosseum is helping and enable that. And the fact that you can just start a timer straight away and kick it off makes it easily accessible for anybody throughout the year.
Yeah, I think these updates, I think they're working pretty well. So we'll probably adopt those also for the hackathon, just because I think it helps people, be more engaged throughout the process, rather than, we register and we find our team and then like we build and we don't really interact with anyone for 6 weeks and then you can submit at the end. So I think adding these like weekly updates that are pretty simple, we only ask for basically like 30 seconds to a minute update on kind of like what was accomplished that week. And it also helps us from an evaluation standpoint. We've got up to close to 1,500 product submissions as of last hackathon. And so it's another sort of like mechanism for us to check to see like how committed, I guess, teams are and how engaged they are with like their sprint. And yeah, we'll see. It's not going to be a requirement most likely, but like we strongly encourage people to do those weekly updates.
Yeah, because it's almost like showing their full founder journey on Colosseum. And like you always hear about the greats talk about, I wish I recorded earlier on, like when I was like in my shed building, like before it became into this like unicorn company that it is now. So there may be a few of these like garage band founders currently on Colosseum, just recording these little videos like this and putting them on it that eventually will get archived in the future. Because it will be like, this was a glimpse. This shows the magic that happens when you're building a company at the very first beginning and wanting to then take it all the way forward.
Yeah, I certainly think that's going to be the case. So it'll be interesting to look back kind of like years from now and see who submitted those videos. But yeah, we'll see.
Very cool. And can we release for the hackathon itself the dates and what the different tracks and what it's going to start to look like? Or give a little sneak peek to the people listening of what they should be paying attention to.
Yeah, so the dates of the hackathon have been announced. So they're April 14th through May 16th. And there are some changes to some things, and we'll have some more announcements, but maybe a sneak peek on some of those things for listeners of this. One, we're changing some of the tracks, so we're adding an AI track. So we'll see what people kind of experiment with on that front. We also are focusing a little bit on like university students. So we're adding some additional university prizes per track, as well as what we're calling the dropout prize, which is specifically for the student team that we want to basically admit into the accelerator program. And in order for them to do that, they need, like we do with all of our startup founders, is that you have to focus full time on the startup once you take investment from us and enter the program. And that could require them dropping out of their current university program. So we'll see how that goes. But I think, yeah, we'd like to see more engagement from university students as just like a longer term goal. I think from our numbers, I think university participation peaked actually probably in 2022. So like right before the X thing, and it really hasn't recovered a ton since then. And so we're trying to put more incentives in place to get students interested. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, like the students coming forward are where you're going to be able to find those like little hidden gems. Like I think it's probably underrated how there's a few like little rock stars. So we have like in Super Team UK a couple of members who are 17 and 18 who have built successful companies. One's Theo with Noda. He exited his first company at 15 and been fighting since he was 11. Is now 17 building Noda, which is like proper infrastructure for Solana. And then Junid, who went through Super Team India, then came to the UK instead of going to a US university because there was a super team there. And was like, hey, I can go there. Went to a random university where then just kept shipping, came to our build station. He actually stole my co-founder of Super Team UK, Kobe, away, and then we were able to go and build Bulk. And so it's really cool to be able to see that young talent that could come through because there are real opportunities if they've got that hustle because they have the energy and they have the desire and passion. And I think if they want to break out of their traditional world where they're going into, like this industry is a perfect place to be able to do it, and building a project is an awesome place to start. And you've also mentioned it before about even if you just submit into the hackathon and don't win or don't go on to build that project, it's amazing for your career and being able to showcase of your abilities and your proof of work to then get the jobs afterwards as well, and to be able to like consistently stand out against everybody else, because graduates sometimes find it hard to get jobs, but like A players don't find it hard to get jobs. So you just gotta like up the skill yourself and prove that you're an A player.
Yeah, I think we're not expecting like a lot of these students to have breakout startups during this next hackathon. I think the idea though is just long term. We certainly want this constant pipeline of young talent, basically learning about Solana, competing in a few hackathons to get their feet wet, basically, and get interested in the space. Maybe they get hired by some ecosystem companies so they can gain more experience. And then hopefully at some point, maybe a few years into their career, they can decide to launch their own startups. I think this is just something we want to foster with the ecosystem generally. Like you don't need to while the hackathons are focused on startups, like we do, plenty of people compete just to up level their resume, to get experience, to get hired by ecosystem companies. So I think that sort of long-term pipeline is important to foster as well.
And I think it's interesting now that there's an AI track within the hackathon as well, because what I'm hearing from a lot of universities, there's a lot of AI noise that's going around. And so
Yes.
it's a good way to tap into it. We're doing like a little hackathon there. We're going to call it an AI-free hackathon. Add it in the Web3 to AI.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why actually a lot of students haven't continued to be interested in crypto is just because AI has taken off in the last few years and sucked up a lot of the interest and talent for good reason too. It is amazing. But I think, yeah, we're just seeing now some of those crossover AI crypto use cases as of recent. And so I think now is a good time to, yeah, reintroduce this AI track and to see what people present.
No, it's going to be exciting to see what people build. And then for those people who are like at the top, like those potential winners who are living and who are excited and getting ready for this upcoming hackathon, what's your like top couple pieces of advice to be able to give to them to point them in the right direction of you should think about it this way, because that's how we're judging it and that's how we're approaching looking and evaluating your project?
I think the first thing is to start. First thing is I highly recommend trying to find a co-founder to build with you. I think there are very few startups in the last couple hackathons that have won that have just been solo founders. And so just automatically you just get more stuff done. You can, yeah, compete a lot more effectively if you have a co-founder, at least one. So I think that's one thing to do just starting right now, like before the hackathon. Start to try to find ex-coworkers or people that you know or that you would think you would want to start a company with. We also have our own platform, right, where you can look through a directory. There's thousands of developers who've competed in hackathons that are looking for co-founders. You can find it on our platform itself. But regardless, try to use the hackathon as that like test of that co-working co-founder kind of relationship. So I think, yeah, that's something we recommend. In terms of what we look for, I think my recommendation is to always choose a product that you would be the first user of, power user.
I like that. I like that. It's nice.
So I think it's something you want to choose something where you think there's a huge market opportunity long term that you would be the first user of, that you could feasibly figure out, okay, if I'm building this for myself and I have these sort of like needs and wants, there's probably like 10 other people in my immediate circle that also want that as well. And so if you really deeply understand the demand and the problem that you're solving, you can get those sort of initial like 10 beta users, basically. So either you can just ask them directly, throw them into a Telegram group, or we also recommend people creating a Twitter account and see from the very beginning of the hackathon, just so that you can be sharing basically what you're building and like trying to find those like maybe potential power users that you can get feedback from early on. And I think that is one of the things that we look for, like in the presentation and like the submission, is like, how have you, not only like what you have built, how you decided to prioritize your engineering sprint, but what has been the initial sort of like feedback from even just one person on this. And so I think that's like kind of what a startup is anyways, is that you have an idea, you start building the product, you're constantly trying to get customer feedback on what you're building and verifying if this is the right thing, if you're getting closer to product market fit. And so that cycle of just like being in this Telegram group and constantly sharing and getting feedback is what we're looking for. And a lot of the winners have done this quite well.
Would you want them to be like building in public? Would you want to see that on the timeline? And then ideally even some like social traction going behind that?
I think that's up to them. I think that's one way to do it. I think it's a good way to get some initial people interested. I think we're more looking for is just at least during communication with at least like 5 to 10 like potential users of your product, not just a broad group of people that are following your Twitter account. It's like you want to find those like people that could be your users and be getting feedback directly from them. That's what's most important for us, at least early on. And so I think that would be ideal. And I think what people find is that if they we've had a few projects from the last hackathon, more in like developer tooling, where they did this, where they announced, hey, we're going to build this during the hackathon, got a few people into the Telegram group. And it just became clear very quickly what you want to see is, hey, if you build this, like I will pay for this product. So they were like some projects that wanted to integrate some of their developer tooling, and they say, hey, if you ever get done with this hackathon and actually complete this, we'll pay for this product, basically. And that's kind of like what you want to hear is, hey, these people are willing to at least like pay to use it. Not all products have that same sort of monetization path, but that's a positive sign.
Is there any like wildcard areas that you're personally just like looking forward to seeing even in industry develop out further, and that somebody can even start an inkling or like a direction towards it during a hackathon like this?
Yeah, one thing, I don't know if it's like a specific category, it's just a broad way of like building a project that I'm interested in. So we recently made an investment in this project called dev.fun. And there's a few things in Web 2 that are like it. So there's Lovable, which is I think it's like the fastest growing startup in Europe. And basically it's this like kind of movement of what people are calling vibe coding, which is essentially, you don't have to be technical to do this. You basically just talk to an LLM that's been trained to do this sort of work of like programming actual apps. And you just communicate like what you want to build. Like obviously right now it's like very simple things like very 2D games or just simple like meme apps or whatever. But feasibly, like you can prototype things like very quickly and take the code that the LLM generates and build off of that, make it more advanced. And so I think I'm really curious to see how people use vibe coding in hackathons to get to proof of concept and then iterate it on it and get in that feedback loop like way quicker. And I think that, yeah, this is just transforming not only hackathons, but just like software development generally. I think I saw Y Combinator, which is like the main accelerator in the United States, was saying that like 95% of startups in their most recent batch was using like basically LLMs predominantly to write their code. So this is like a pretty interesting kind of phenomenon that's happening more and more. And I think that's great because it means that it expands who can build applications, right? Like you maybe don't need a CS degree necessarily to do this now. So I think this is all just to say I'm really interested to see maybe some more non-technical people utilize these tools like Lovable, Applet, or DevFun to like prototype.
Yeah, that would be fun. Because it's something that is super interesting where it opens up a new audience. So people who previously can't code, so they can't write the hard code, they can now still build things. And developers before who can write the hard code, no, don't need to. They can build faster and accelerate that development, and have less grunt work to do, which is like awesome.
Yeah, I think the people that are using this predominantly now actually are technical people who are just like becoming more effective and more potent, basically builders because of these tools, because they understand intellectually like what it actually means to program an app. And so just seeing these AI products like solve problems for them really quick is really valuable to them. So yeah, we'll see what comes of it.
There we go. And the hackathon's coming up April 14th. It's going to be the kickoff. Are you planning to do any special initiatives around it as a Colosseum team? Is anything that we should be looking out for, that we should be paying attention to?
I think the one thing that we're going to be bringing back that we haven't done in a few years is live stream workshops. So we're unclear if we're going to be able to get it into the platform itself for this hackathon, but generally we're going to have a schedule of technical workshops that are happening on a weekly basis throughout the hackathon. It should it should be interesting for everyone participating. So that's one thing that be on the lookout for that schedule. And then I always have to plug like Super Teams build stations. I know that there's a ton on those, and I think those are really good opportunities for people to meet up IRL and get some additional support before the submission.
No, they're awesome. The London one's going to be the 5th of May to the 16th of May. And then what's quite fun for us is that because it ends at like midnight American time, for us that's morning or the 17th. What we do is on the 17th, we then have our demo day. So it's usually an all-nighter with everybody on the front lines. I'm like running around the build station, doing decks and get everyone lined up. Last minute one-liner adjustments I'm like, oh, you can think about it like this to get it all in. And then we have a celebration afterwards where everyone gets to showcase and invite other investors down and hopefully start their fundraising journey. Because the
Yeah.
hackathons, I think, are a really good way to get that sprint out, get that product, as you're saying, like closer to product market fit. And after it's cool, how do we get you investor ready? How are we able to help support, make sure that you can now fund this idea that you've shown has a bit of traction? And
Yep.
the accelerator, the Colosseum has, and the 250K funding goes a long way to them being able to help them take it to that next level.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, yeah, we are looking for startups, and the reason for that is that's really what pushes like on-chain activity, which is an end goal for us, but also like the Solana Foundation generally. Like we want to increase demand for block space, and startups building applications that people want to use on chain is the way to do that. But that's not to say that like our hackathons are only for startup founders who want to quit their job. It's also just a great way to get your feet wet, try to develop a product, compete, and get hired by an ecosystem company. So there's many paths, within the hackathon.
Awesome. It's going to be an exciting April 14th to the May 16th. Make sure you're taking your notes away from this. Matty, was there anything else last that you want to leave everybody with?
Trying to think. No, I think the only thing is just like, if you've participated in these hackathons before, go tell 10 of your smartest friends to also participate in the next one. I think that's where we see a lot of like interesting people come into our ecosystem, is that you get like one really smart person who maybe wins the hackathon, and they then say, hey, like there's this awesome sort of like ecosystem called Solana. Like I'm pretty excited about what they're building. And there's also this like path if you want to get started building in it to join the next hackathon. So that's like the main ask I have for everyone, is just try to convince the 10 smartest people to join the next one.
There we go. All right, it's time to break out, build the next Solana product, and let's go find another unicorn founder.
Awesome. Cool. Thanks.
And I appreciate the time.
Thanks, man.